anything we missed, anything that you were hoping to talk about here, or if not, any, don't understand anything you're hoping someone listens to this takes away from the conversation?
Yeah, I would say that, the biggest thing for us right now is because of the newness of, this movement, not just our stance, but just in general, regardless of where the price point comes in, regardless of the systems that are being utilized, the adoption, I think, is going to be, quite high, and it's going to be fast. And so long as the regulatory environment can kind of keep pace and does not kind of prohibit any of the the advancements and such, because it's going to move fast, because it has the luxury of being, as I said before, almost the last sector to carry this momentum or carry this movement or adopt these practices. And so, I think the soundbite is that, Halevai as a company is going to deliver an incredible boat. It's going to be everything that the consumer and the purchaser of that boat wants and needs. And the broader base stance that we are bringing to the market, which is very, very novel, goes beyond that, to be a showcase of, again, new processes, new materials, to be able to advocate for the electrification and, removing carbon from the atmosphere, and the largest, sector that produces it, is something that we're pretty jazzed up about. And if we can go forward and talk to 100 people when only 10 of them are going to buy boats, we'll have accomplished what we're out for.
Yeah, and I want to draw attention to one disparity. We understand that the automotive industry as a whole is not the largest segment of contribution to carbon emissions, right? And there are other ways to attack these larger challenges. When we talk about carbon capture, we could stay on this podcast for hours and talk about like ways that we could mitigate and make changes, right? But there is a disparity. In the United States alone, the 15 million registered boats produce just as much carbon as 200 million cars. So there's a really, really gross disparity there, right? Because the engine types that are being used for these small recreational vehicles have not been regulated since the 1980s. These 4-stroke outboards or inboards are, they put out a tremendous per unit load, because the automotive industry has made adaptation for the last 40 years, and there's been no adaptation. And so where we position ourselves is to say, let's start with that, right? We're not solving the world's global carbon problems, but what we're doing is we're offering a starting solution in a recreational space, because you don't need to take a boat out, you like to take a boat out. And so in this space, let's start to change the power model. And then also let's look at the possibility of potentially creating a laminate schedule for the architecture of boats is usually fiberglass. These smaller boats are made out of formed fiberglass, right? The laminate schedule there includes glass and polychemical resins, right? So derivatives of the petrochemical space. We know that there are technologies now that can use organic materials, put a laminate schedule with bioresins that can be put together and separated multiple times over and have a cradle-to-cradle type solution. We know these technologies exist. They've been used and applied in the aerospace industry for many, many years, but there's no supply chain for it. So what I leave you with is that we're going to start with power. We're going to start with this electrification model. What we're really looking towards is to create this new standard bearer for the entire industry and look at how can we innovate each part of the boat making process. And in 20 years time, or 30 or 40 years time, that entire supply chain, that entire repurposing cycle could look very, very differently. And it could sound very differently, to your point. It could be a lot less noise in the marina, right? There could be a lot more space for wildlife, and we could be repurposing our boats. And all these recreational activities could have somewhat of a meaningful outcome. And we want to focus now on just our customer-driven expectations, but long-term, these are our goals.